Let's
looking at
go.
him. A little bit more expensive to get to New Orleans than Pasadena. But hey, we've got some stuff to celebrate. 10th year of the college football playoff and the final year of the 4-team playoff, Yogi. The drought is over officially for the Pac-12. Washington will play Texas in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day in the CFP semifinals. It'll be Michigan and Alabama in the Rose Bowl. We'll talk about Alabama getting in over Florida State, but let's start with the Huskies. Highest ranking ever for the program, number 2, and they are headed back to the playoffs for the first time since 2016 to face a team that they played last year in the Alamo Bowl. Your initial reactions, because I know you had a very good case to be made for Washington to be the number 1 overall team.
Yeah, I want to say with the positive first. They're in. They're at a top 2 seed. I get that they're not playing the Rose Bowl, but they are number 2 seed. And I think that all year long, being on the group that presents to the committee, the conversation has always been, well, why isn't Washington number 1? Why isn't Washington number 1? Not why aren't they 3 or why aren't they 4 when they were sitting outside of it? So they have their opportunity, right? They're a top 2 seed and they get to play a team that they've got a little familiarity with. To your point from a year ago, granted, different teams, different players. We know what the portal has done to both of these rosters to a certain degree. And I love the drama, right? Steve Sarkisian, former head coach at Washington, a lot of ties to that school. So it'll be a blast to watch. I do think these two teams are playing at a really special level, and I love them getting a couple weeks off. We'll get the best version of both of them. I think among the 4 teams in the playoff, it's not even a conversation. These are the 2 best offenses. The 2 most creative offenses. And it's going to be a show. I mean, it's going to be an absolute blast because game plan wise, they'll be dialed. Their players will be focused. Both teams can win the national championship. I would argue if you wanted to go down like who's playing the best, I think these 2 teams have been playing the best, especially over the course of the last 72 hours or so. So we've got a great one. It'll come down to the end like the Alamo Bowl did a year ago. So on the positive side, really excited about this matchup. Cannot wait to get to New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl with so much at stake.
Yeah, and I think when you look at big picture, obviously this was the hardest task the committee has had in the 10 years, and this is the final time. It's going to be 4 teams next year. We'll go to 12, so we'll never be in this situation again. Where you will have a 13-0 Power 5 conference champion not be one of the final 4 teams. And it did come down to, you heard Boo Corrigan, the chair, talk about it was Alabama versus Florida State for that 4th spot, and player availability, one of the criteria. And ultimately, without their starting quarterback in Jordan Travis, that's one of the reasons why they chose Bama. So you go back to, is it the most deserving versus the best team? And I don't know, just a quick thought before we talk about the Huskies beating Oregon in Vegas a couple nights ago. A final thought on how they went about their selection in taking Bama and getting the SEC in.
Yeah, well, the first thought I had was, what would happen to Oregon if they won? Like, would they have gotten in when you look at everything that's gone on over the course of championship weekend? I don't know. I don't know what the committee would have done based on this. I'm really disappointed that Florida State didn't get in. Reason being, like, you have an example of this. You go back to the 2014-2015 season. We were there. It was when Oregon lost to Ohio State. Ohio State lost their starting quarterback. And then they lost their backup quarterback in JT Barrett and then won the national championship with Cardale Jones. And I think what's challenging is that when you saw the backup play against Florida in a tough environment, Kirk Herbstreit referenced it earlier on the show, on the reveal show, they battled, they competed. And now we're talking about, close to a month to prepare with your number 2 quarterback who didn't play in the ACC championship game. Defense was lights out, and they did everything. They beat SEC teams. They had a better record against that league. I mean, that to me was unsettling to say that, because I could look at Alabama and I could look at them in their game against Auburn. You could look at a lot of games throughout the season. So, you know what? They haven't been truly dominant, right? It would have been different if it was Georgia to me because of who they were in the totality of the season. But a Hail Mary to win a game against your rival 2 weeks ago, I don't know about all that. I get getting up for the Georgia game, and they did win that game and had command of it in the first half and held on late. Quarterback was phenomenal with his legs on that final drive, and Jalen Milroe. But that one to me was about, like, what did I just see right now versus, hey, what might I see in 3+ weeks? What has this team done? And I just think when you look at a Power 5 league being undefeated, like what else can you ask for? And they didn't play a nothing schedule. Like, I get that they don't play 9 conference games. I'm on that argument all day long, but they beat an LSU team. I mean, they have quality wins on their schedule. I get they're not Georgia, but I was disappointed in that one for the sport. I wonder what would have happened to Oregon if they won. Would they have been outside looking in? Because the same one-loss teams won the Big 12 and won the SEC. I would hope that the committee wouldn't have done that, but we'll never know. And then I think finally on the number one seed, that one to me was surprising. I thought that was I thought Michigan just got the benefit of the doubt all year long, and they didn't play anywhere near the schedule that Washington played. And I say that not to complain about where we sit today, Ash. I say that because what happened when fuel was added to that proverbial fire a week ago with the 10-point eventual 9-point underdogs for UW? Well, I think it happened again with where Michigan sits at number one, going to the Rose Bowl, the stadium and the game that we all know and grow and to love so much. I think that's they don't need it, but it's a little bit of extra fuel of, okay, those 13 people felt without a shadow of a doubt that it was Michigan because they had them higher than UW all year long. And I think when you look at what we saw Friday and Saturday and who the opponent was, I didn't think it was a conversation. So I look at like totality. I didn't think it mattered because they left Florida State out, and they almost didn't, to me, consider the immediate, because who looked better in championship weekend, Michigan or Washington, especially when you take the opponent into consideration. I thought it was Washington. So some inconsistencies in that regard, but everybody has a grudge here on Sunday. And the good news is, as you referenced, at least a team from the Pac-12 is back into the CFP.
Amen. And, seeing some fan comments, we love to hear from you guys. Give us the 9.5 again line for the dogs. Because they came out in Friday night in Las Vegas. It felt like Washington, they had that chip on their shoulder and they had something to prove. Vegas did them no favors by making Oregon the heavy favorites. Certainly. I should say they did the Ducks no favors by making Washington the 9.5-point underdogs. But when you look at that game, and let's put a bow on that because we were both there for it. And I think it was one of the most special games I've ever been to in 17 years of being a broadcaster. The energy, the fans, the stadium, the competition. It looked like Washington was all of a sudden going to run away with it, but you knew that Oregon was going to come back, and they did that. So now that we're 48 hours removed from the final iteration of the Pac-12 championship, what are you going to remember most about that game and what you saw that night, Yokes?
Well, I think, as we talked about in the stadium during our pregame shows, this was going to be an execution game. And when you go back and you rewatch that game or you go through the highlights in your mind, Washington just executed at a more efficient clip. Oregon had their moments. We know that. I would have loved to see them get that stop on 3rd and 9, get the ball back with Bo Nix, Heisman candidacy. I mean, he still might be the front runner. I know both of us have votes. I'm going to vote after this segment here today. he would have had a really beautiful opportunity. So I think I look at that and I say the deep crossing routes, the beautiful game planning from Ryan Grubb, like when they had to execute the final run there with Dylan Johnson, excuse me, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. And I think when you look ahead, and let's just give one more thought to this Washington-Texas matchup, 5:45 on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2024. Yes. Michigan will play Bama in the Rose Bowl at 2:00. What's the first thing that comes out? You talk about the offense, but like when you think about what is Washington going to have to do, and they will hopefully have a chance to maybe go play Michigan and prove who the number one team actually is. Hopefully they get that opportunity. But what do you think is going to be the biggest thing for Kalen DeBoer's squad to be able to finish the job that they started and really silence a lot of people who have been doubting them all season long because they've been winning all of these close games and instead of blowing people out, but at the end of the day, they have gotten it done.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think when you look at the college football season, I don't think the country is looking at the slate and the sequencing of games that Washington has to go through. So let's remind them at Arizona, who we'll see later today, where do they fit in the final rankings? They'll be in the top 15. Oregon, they get ASU, Stanford. I get it. But then they get SC on the road, Utah, Oregon State, Washington State, and then again to play Oregon. And none of these championship games did anybody have to play anybody twice. In fact, they didn't play anybody once. Like nobody had them in the regular season. So I just think that when you look at how battle-tested Washington is, Ash, you got to give them dramatic credit. And I don't know if they're getting it. Clearly they're not, with not being the number one seed. But I don't even think nationally people are saying, dang, what a run this team's had to go on. And they were not healthy. And that was, to me, the final push to the committee of, well, we saw Friday night. was the healthiest Washington has been since they beat Oregon the first time. I'm talking about not just Jalen McMillan, but Asa Turner, Cameron Fabiculanen. I mean, there's some elite players, some critical players on both sides of the ball that were finally back. And I think that is a huge thing for this team moving forward. I actually think they're undervalued going in, and they have all the ability to not just win against Texas, actually, but to win the national championship. We're talking about a player who might go win the Heisman a week from now. We're talking about a player who might win the Blitnikoff a few days from now. We're talking about an offensive line that is regarded as one of the better ones in the country, and a defense. Look what they did to one of the most explosive offenses in the country. And they neutralized Oregon for the entirety of the first half until the final drive. And for the majority of the game, I mean, Oregon had their moments, but they very rarely found a rhythm, I thought, offensively. And I think that defense, led by Adefeuan Ulofashio and company, Braylon Trice and company, Zion Tupelo-Fatui and company, they just haven't been given a lot of credit. And what I love about this matchup for both Texas's defense and UW's defense, they will not get any play heading into these games. We get it. Quinn Ewers, Michael Penix Jr., Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer, we all understand why. But these defenses, God, it's going to be fun. You got Pete Kwiatkowski leading Texas, former UW defensive coordinator. We know the co-coordinators at UW, they have to face each other every day. The dynamic element of both of those offenses, how explosive they are, how they attack, they really remind you of one another. So this will be so much fun to watch those defenses play. I bet they play much better than we think. I don't know what the point total is already in Vegas, but I would take the under. I really would in this game, because I think that these defenses will play much better than given credit, because at times this year they have.
Yeah. I can't say enough about what Kalen DeBoer and that staff has done. When you think about they're 2 years removed from a 4-8 season, and all that they have done since they've gotten to Seattle is win games and get this team to buy in. And it's been special to watch and have a front row seat to it. So looking forward to January 1st at 5:45, that kickoff. It's going to be good. There are 7 more Pac-12 teams who are bowl eligible. Those will all come out later today. We'll have bowl previews for you tomorrow on Monday, going through all the teams. So looking forward to that. But Yogs, man, how is it December? Like, how is it December? I don't understand where the time went.
I don't know where a lot of things went, Ash, sitting here in December.
Point.
That was kind of my prevailing thought after the champ game. You look up at the stadium, you're like, what? God, it's not broken. Like, this league is so strong with where it sits now. I would imagine Oregon is going to be ranked 7 or 8 based on how they value Ohio State or not. So an incredible season in the Pac. I hope, to your point on the later rankings, we find Utah in the top 25. We'll see. I don't know. Clearly, they gave the SEC a ton of credit versus the ACC. So maybe anybody in the SEC with 4 losses just gets in. We'll find out how that thing shakes out. But it'll be interesting. It's been an incredible year. You're right. A lot to celebrate. And you got what you asked for. A team has a chance to go win it all. And it's the best team in the league. And I just find it ironic that you look at the last couple Pac-12 titles, the last 3 of them, they've had to do the same thing, which is beat a team twice.
Yeah.
And that's just unheard of. And who knows who knows if we even have championship games moving forward? Like, what is the point of them with a 12-team playoff? I mean, they're all basically first-round games anyway. So I'll be curious to see what the sport does. And I think for us and the fans, let's just enjoy the daylights out of this in the last iteration of college football as we know it. So I'd imagine our friends in the South and the ACC are finding ways to say, man, what are we doing right now in this league? And see if there's adjustments around that. I mean, there's a lot that's going to continue to unfold.
There's a lot that is going to continue to change and unfold. That's one thing that we definitely know for sure. If the last several years have taught us anything. Yogs, you're the man. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow for some bowl previews, baby.
Yeah, I cannot wait. Who's in the holiday? What's going to happen in the Gronk Bowl? I mean, there's a lot of fun. Let's go. I can't wait. I'm going to go to as many as possible. Maybe we'll go back to Vegas, check out the Vegas Bowl again. Who knows?
I'm sign me up. Sign me up.
Just got to sleep.
Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.